One of my favorite dishes is lasagna. I love cooking lasagna because it's delicious and it's easy to make. When I make lasagna, I always use the same recipe and I follow the same steps in the same order. It's very important because if you put the cheese before the beef or you skip a step of the process, the lasagna is a mess and it's not lasagna, it's just some meat with some cheese and sauce. That is delicious, but it's not lasagna. So to make lasagna properly, you have to follow the recipe in the right order. So today we're going to do two things. I'm going to help you with your English by teaching you some words that you can use to connect different parts of a process. And I'm also going to teach you my recipe for my famous lasagna bolognese. A recipe is like a story. It has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Let's look at the beginning. Firstly, soak the lasagna noodles individually in cold water for about 10 minutes. Don't forget to take the noodles out of the water and put them on a plate. Firstly, the word I have underlined is a connecting word, and it indicates to your reader that this is the beginning or the first step of the recipe. Next part. Then mix the ricotta cheese. Whisk it with 2 or 3 eggs and set it aside. Then is like saying this is the next step of the recipe. After, fry the onions and garlic in a little bit of olive oil for 5 minutes. Then and after are almost the same. You can use both of them to indicate that the sentence that follows is part of the middle of the text. Then add the ground beef and the spices and cook them together with the fried onions and garlic. Now it's the end of the recipe. To indicate that this is the end or the final sentence, we use the word finally. Finally, when the beef gets mostly brown, you can turn off your stove and set the hot frying pan aside. Instead of using finally, you can use the word lastly. Lastly and finally mean more or less the same thing. This next activity is similar to one that you're going to do in a few minutes. Here we have the second part of my lasagna recipe. But it's a bit confusing. It's a mess because the sentences are not in order. For example, the first sentence says, lastly, after waiting 10 to 15 minutes for your fresh homemade lasagna to cool down, you can eat it. We remember that lastly is something that refers to the end of a process or the end of a text. So we probably need to put it at the end. Let's do that. Okay, then repeat this process until you have used all the ingredients. Okay, this is probably not the first part because it uses the word then. So it must be somewhere in the middle. Okay. Now you can build your lasagna. To start, add about 1/3 of the ground beef mixture to the bottom of the pan. We know that this is the beginning of the text because the sentence here uses the word to start. To start is more or less the same thing as saying firstly. Okay, now we have the first and the final step of the recipe in their correct places, but the middle part is a little bit messy. Then repeat this process until you have used all the ingredients. Don't forget to put an extra layer of mozzarella on top of the final layer of noodles to make it extra cheesy. Okay, that sounds good, but this sounds like something that happens later. Let's look at the next one. After, add some of the ricotta cheese mixture, a layer of lasagna noodles to cover this, and a thick layer of grated mozzarella cheese. Okay, this is the process that the other sentence was talking about. So I think we need to switch these two. How about this sentence? Next, bake your lasagna in the oven at 190 degrees Celsius for about 50 to 60 minutes. Okay, I think that sentence is correct because after you prepare the lasagna ingredients, you have to put it in the oven. And that's before you eat it, obviously. So now it looks like all parts of the recipe are in the right order. Now you have to do an activity where you have to put the paragraphs of a cake recipe in the correct order. Remember to look for connecting words like firstly, after, then, and lastly to help you know where each paragraph goes. Good luck!